Alright, welcome everyone to my video on the Uberti Schofield revolver. I did one a while back on shooting black powder through it. I figured I'd do another one focusing more on the revolver. This one is a Uberti manufactured Schofield, made about 10 years ago. The Schofield's been reproduced by 3 different companies since probably the early 90s, I want to guess. Originally it was brought out by Army San Marco and imported through 1 or 2 different importers. Those guns are very problematic. I know there's some out there that guys say they run well and they're good, but more often than not, they're going to have issues. They quit making them a long time ago. There are still some out there. I see them from time to time. I did run across a pair a long time ago used, and both of them, the latches didn't latch properly. I'm sure they would have opened up upon firing. They had some noticeable issues just messing around with them at the shop. Uberti came out with one about the same time, maybe a little bit later. And as far as I know, I haven't heard of too many problems with these other than the typical quality control issues and whatnot that manufacturers may have. But anytime you hear about problems with the early Schofield reproductions, more than likely it's the Army San Marco guns that gave them the bad reputation. I've not heard much about problems with the early Ubertis. Also, the Smith & Wesson Performance Center came out with one in the early 2000s, which is dimensionally probably a little bit more accurate. It has a shorter cylinder. It only chambers 45 Schofield, but mechanically is different from the original. I believe it has a frame-mounted firing pin and a couple other differences, but regardless, those are nice guns too, although I don't have any experience with those other than what I've read or seen online. This one here, if you watch my other video, I shoot a fair amount of black powder through it. It shoots fair to good with black powder if you go through the proper procedures to get it, to function properly. Most Uberti Schofields the cylinder will start binding up after very few rounds, usually a cylinder or two. This one here I've gotten up into close to 50 rounds without having to worry about freeing up the cylinder or starting to bind up. My recipe for this gun in particular has been keeping the cylinder pin, the grooves, lubed up with a lithium food grade type of grease, which you can tell there's some on there. I use Old Enfield powder, which burns pretty clean, although I don't know that's available right now, and a NEI hollow based 45 Colt bullet that runs around 250 grains, and I've been lucky that I can get close to a box of shells through it without it starting to drag. The same rounds with GoX bind up pretty quickly, less than probably 2 or 3 cylinders anyway. Like I said, not really a whole lot I can add that you can already see on other videos online. Put the gun to half cock, pull back the cylinder latch, ejects the shells, you reload, and then it's ready to go. I will say, and I know it's mentioned on other sites, and sometimes you can even see it happen, they don't tell you it's happening, is particularly with 45 Colt loads, whenever you go to eject them, if you do it slowly and you're doing it straight up like this, sometimes the rims will slip past the extractor and the rounds will fall down on the cylinder. They could be kind of a pain in the ass to get out. Usually, if you open it up sideways like this and flip it out, they usually come out pretty good. And shorter rounds, like the 45 Schofield, come out even better. So that's the only gripe I'd really have, and it's a problem with all of them, mostly because of the 45 Colt's small rim doesn't help. But anyway, I mean, it's been a good gun. Typical Uberti. Sometimes you got to fiddle with them a little bit to get them perfect, but I've probably got 300 or 400 rounds through this one, with probably half of them being black powder. Just a little quick history on the Schofield. You know, the number 3 revolver came out in 1870. General Schofield improved upon it with the opening latch being on the frame mounted instead of barrel mounted, where it was easier to open with one hand. And that the first model has this type of latch. The second model has a larger latch that's easier to use and get your thumb on. Like I said, I switched this over to a first model latch just because I think it's a little bit sleeker looking, although it's not as easy to use. So the first model is 1875, second model is 1877. I think there was probably around 8,000 or so made total between the two, give or take. And there was some civilian models, at least of the second model. I'm not 100% sure on the first model. Other than that, that's really all I've got on this. The Ubertis were made in a 5 and a 7.5 inch and a 3.5 inch hideout gun. This is the 7.5 inch. I do have a number 3 American that I've got from Cimarron that I will be making a video on shortly. It's chambered in .44 special. I'm kind of excited about that one. I don't know if I'm going to do a video on it until after I get to shoot it. But that one's coming up, and that'll probably be one of my last cowboy handgun videos. That's run through pretty much my collection of what I have. But anyway, we'll give a quick look of the Uberti Schofield first model. And then we'll wrap this one up. Hope you all have a good day.